Good morning. I'm Andrew James from 91.3 The Summit. I'll be your MC today. I want to thank you all for coming out and for your interest in sustainable business practices. And as I said earlier, we're real excited to hear our speaker this morning, Graham Russell. He's got a background in finance, so he's really going to be speaking to the business community this morning on what it means to be sustainable and how that will work for your business. But before we get started, I'd like to welcome President CEO of the Greater Akron Chamber, Dan Colantone.
Good morning. Let's try that one again. Good morning. First of all, I want to thank you all for being here this morning. This is a very special morning, a morning in which we will take the time to recognize some outstanding companies and organizations for what they do, really frankly what you all do, because we're all here because we care about sustainability. It is so critical to our success in terms of prosperity. You know, if you think about the three words that we've all been using, that's sort of in our culture, just in our everyday thinking as we are part of a partnership, it is about prosperity, it is about people, it is about place. It's also important. I guess this is our third annual that we've been together, and I could tell you that while I represent the Greater Akron Chamber, and we are a founding partner, and there are four other organizations I really think is important to recognize. And without question, you know, this city, this county is so blessed to have amazing leadership at the city and at the county. City of Akron and the county of Summit. I really think we ought to take the extra time to thank the mayor and Russ Pry. Can we thank them for what they do every day? Not just around sustainability. Really think we ought to recognize Keep America Beautiful and ReWorks. Let's thank them for what they're supporting. Graham, really looking forward to your remarks here this morning. You know, as I was driving in and thinking about this morning what I might share, you know, Graham's been focusing in on this topic, and we're all anxious to hear his thoughts and perspectives. It's great to know that he's run businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, for 20 plus years. And now he's going to share what makes a difference and some thoughts and some things for us to think about as we move forward. I'm hopeful that all of you will take away his message and maybe use social media, send a little note, send an email, share something on Facebook. Let's tell this great region how important sustainability is and how it can really, truly change the world. I'd like now to ask Shelley Cadillac come forward. She is the Education Promotion Specialist with ReWorks. And Shelley, if you'll come forward and let's welcome her to the podium. She will introduce our speaker this morning.
Thank you, Dan. Good morning. Graham Russell is a sustainable business professional and sustainability consultant. Graham has 25 years of CEO experience in small to mid-sized companies in the environmental services and transportation industries. His expertise is in helping organizations understand how a strategy based on principles of sustainability drives innovation, competitive advantage, job creation, and improved financial performance. Through TruePoint Advisors, he provides consulting services to develop and implement a sustainability-based strategy, as well as a strategic marketing and planning service to companies in the environmental services and the clean tech industry. Mr. Russell currently directs an MBA course in sustainability businesses at the University of Colorado Denver Business School and chairs the school's Managing of Sustainability Advisor Council. He is a frequent writer and speaker on the subject of the benefits of sustainability-based strategies and a co-author of A Simple Path to Sustainability: Green Business Strategies for Small and Medium-Sized Businesses. He is on the board of the International Society for Sustainability Professionals. Please join me in welcoming Graham Russell.
Thank you very much indeed, Shelley. Certainly appreciate that very nice introduction, and I want to thank Paula and all of the rest of you here who are responsible for me being in Akron. It's a long time since I was in Ohio. I'm delighted to be here to share with you a few thoughts about sustainable business, and thank you all also for the enormous package of Akron-related sustainability stuff that I found in my hotel room last night. I will have to rent a truck to get it back to Colorado, but nevertheless, I really appreciate it. So, sustainable business. I'm going to talk about sustainable business. I know some of you here are not with for-profit organizations, and I know that you have award winners who are with non-profits and schools and so forth, but I think the principles of sustainable business apply to all kinds of organizations. If you are a non-profit or if you're a government organization, the funding that you get comes from somebody somewhere who earned the money to begin with. So I think the principles of sustainable business apply to all kinds of organizations. You'll notice that I have a background slide here, which is a picture of Blue Lake and Mount Toll in the Indian Peaks Wilderness, close to my home in Colorado. I put it up there because I think we all tend to think of sustainability in environmental terms. And while that's important, I want to focus also this morning on the social aspects of sustainability, which are more difficult to measure, but which in many cases are actually even more important than the environmental aspects of sustainability. So, with that, let us get into sustainable business. Why wouldn't you do it? A quote from Peter Swinburne, the CEO of Molson Coors Brewing Company in Colorado, one of the most sustainable beverage companies in the world. Why wouldn't you do it? Well, here are some of the reasons that you've all heard. It's an SEP, someone else's problem. It's the government's problem to fix it. It's those characters in China who are polluting the world that need to get to grips with it, so I'm not going to bother with it. Too bad. I've got mine. Yep, it's an issue, but I've got money and it isn't really going to affect me because I'm okay. Thank you very much. It's too big to get my mind around. It's a huge issue. I've got day-to-day issues to worry about, like getting my kids off to school, finding a new job, paying the mortgage. I'll be dead by the time it arrives. Yeah, I know it's coming along, but I will have snuffed it long before we drown in the rising seas or fry in the burning earth. It'll cost too much. I can't afford to put a windmill on the roof of my business, so forget about it. There's no way I can afford it. And finally, I'm only a little guy, I'm only a little business. What can I possibly do about it anyway? So, what about the people who do something about it? Why would you do it? And I think there's sort of three principal reasons why you might get into sustainability, business owner or a human being. First of all, there are a lot of people out there whose DNA contained the sustainability gene to begin with. And they've done it, they've supported social and environmental initiatives since they were kids. Somebody I know well, Kim Jordan, the president and founder of New Belgium Brewing Company, which is now I think the second largest craft brewing company in the country. She's been passionate about it since she was a little girl, and she's built her organization around it for those reasons. Another issue that I hear that drives a lot of people is, well, I really care about the kind of world that my children and grandchildren are going to grow up in. I'm not sure that they're going to have the quality of life that I'm enjoying. And yeah, once in a while you do actually run into some people, like some of you in this room, who think it actually makes good business sense to have a sustainable organization. And that's really what I want to talk about. How do you look at sustainability? What is the business case for sustainability? And you can look at it in lots of different ways. And this is a framework that I found quite useful. Reduced operating costs, risk mitigation, brand equity value, and then new market and revenue opportunities. They overlap, they intermingle, But I want to go briefly through some of the reasons why companies find it beneficial to engage in sustainable business practices. First one is reduced operating costs, and you're all familiar with this. This is improved resource use efficiency. And I'm not going to dwell on this one very much because you're all familiar with it, and I know that your award winners this year and last year have found the benefits in making more efficient use of their resources, whether they're natural resources, energy, water, raw materials. We're talking about things like energy efficiency in buildings or vehicles, waste reduction, recycling, application of clean technologies that reduce the amount of stuff used in your organization, reduce the amount of waste. But there's another angle that I think gets overlooked, and that is the second bullet here, which is the people resources. And I think that there are plenty of companies out there that waste their human resources just as competently as they waste their natural resources. And I'll ask you, how many people do you know that are dissatisfied with their employer and not committed to the way the organization works? And I'm sure plenty of you know other people who are in that position. But the best companies invest in their people resources through training programs, employee wellness programs, other initiatives that make those people more valuable, and they're valuable to other employees who can poach them. But in the meantime, that drives productivity in your workforce. One fine example that I'm familiar with, you may know the company Cliff Bars. It makes energy bars in Colorado. 370-person company, has had a vigorous commitment to sustainability in all its aspects, including these human aspects that I'm talking about. One telling statistic is that it has an annual staff turnover of just 3%. Think about what that does in reducing your costs of hiring and training new employees. That's an aspect of resource efficiency that sometimes gets overlooked in all the blather about energy efficiency and renewable energy and so forth. Sustainability. Risk mitigation. A risk is just cost that's waiting to happen, right? And there are different categories of risk. Regulatory risk, not going to talk about. You're all familiar with what happens if you get on the wrong side of the environmental or the employment regulators. Not usually a good thing to do. Supply chain risk is a little bit more difficult, but green and sustainable supply chain initiatives in large companies are becoming a huge driver for sustainability in smaller companies. So suppose you're a supplier to DirecTV, which recycles all its packaging material under its own sustainability program. But that's a real hassle for DirecTV, and they realize that if they can limit the amount of cardboard packaging coming into the company, they're going to have a lot less trouble dealing with it. And so they decide that they're going to tell their suppliers to reduce the amount of cardboard packaging that they're sending in stuff to DirecTV by 20% by 2018. I have a student working on this project right now. Now, if you're a DirecTV supplier and you cannot meet that requirement, suddenly a chunk of your business is at risk, supply chain risk. Financial risk, that's pretty obvious. Look what happened to a very large oil company from my home country when it blew up an oil well in the Gulf. And it blew up the Texas City refinery. And it fixed the propane market in North America. And it had problems with the Alaska pipeline. Massive $60 billion cost to that organization. Its share price has never recovered. Sloppy, irresponsible management principles and a lot of greenwashing in that company. Some of you recall what happened to Mattel Industries a few years ago when they found lead in the toys that it was distributing in North America. $4.5 billion wiped off its market value almost overnight. Financial risk. Now, if you're in an inherently dirty industry, fossil fuels, mining, exploiting local workers and local environments can threaten your license to operate. So that's why a company like Newmont Mining, which doesn't have the best reputation in the world, builds clinics, water treatment plants, and schools for the villages in which it operates in Ghana and Indonesia to make sure that it has the support of the local community so that it keeps its license to operate. They nearly lost it in Indonesia a few years ago. And finally, if you're a beverage company like Coke or Molson Coors, you better understand where your water supply is going to come from and how you're going to secure it without compromising the other people in your local economy that depend on that water supply. If you don't do that, you're likely to lose your primary raw material, in which case you don't have any business at all. Sustainability, risk mitigation, quite helpful. Brand equity. What do I mean by brand equity? I use the term to mean the way a company is perceived inside and outside the organization, and how this affects an organization's competitive advantage, either for better or for worse. Most responsible companies, particularly larger ones, work very hard to deliver benefits to the community in which they operate, because it's in their business interest to do so. I've talked about license to operate with Newmont Mining, but some of you will be familiar with REI, the big outdoor equipment supplier. And they use a sustainability initiative to build brand equity with their core customers by sending their employees for several days every year under full pay to do trail restoration work in the national parks. And that gets noticed by a group of their core customers who love to be in the national parks, building brand equity with their customers. City of Lakewood, Colorado, which is a big suburb of Denver, does an extraordinary job building brand equity for itself in its neighborhood sustainability program. And I'm not going to go into the details of that now, but it has been so successful in building community sustainability around the city that municipalities from all over the country are actually calling the sustainability manager in the city of Lakewood and say, can we borrow your template, please, so that we can do it in our community? They're actually turned it into a business venture because they're selling that template now. They're also creating the impression and the reality that this is a community that's progressive, a nice place to work, nice place to do business, and therefore that gives them a competitive advantage. An example of building brand equity at the municipal level. Probably going on in this community, I suspect, too. Shareholder loyalty from sustainability? Nah, I don't know about that one. Come back to it in a second. Pretty questionable what the shareholders are doing. Brand equity, internal. Happy, healthy workforce. What does that do? Well, it partly comes back to what I was talking about a moment ago of having a productive workforce and one that stays with the company, which reduces your operating costs in terms of hiring and training. But there's another angle, which again often gets overlooked. More and more people, particularly the younger people, are consciously looking for employment with companies that have a conscious social and environmental element to their strategy. I mentioned Cliff Bar a few moments ago. In the 12 months through the end of September, Cliff Bar had an average of 70 people applying for each of somewhere over 100 positions in that company. And if you think that that gives them a competitive advantage in selecting the best talent available, you're certainly right. And that's a huge issue, and it will become a bigger issue as the younger generation of business leaders steps into the leading management positions in companies. And finally, on the business case, and again, I think this is the most overlooked aspect of sustainability, is how it can drive new market and revenue opportunities by driving innovation in products and services. Some years ago, electronic manufacturers that were used to supplying the US market for computers and other electronic devices found that if they wanted to sell the same stuff in Europe, they had to eliminate a number of toxic chemicals from those products, various form metals, cadmium and so forth, brominated flame retardants. And obviously this was a major business risk for those companies that weren't doing that and selling stuff in the US that couldn't sell the stuff in Europe, or found that they suddenly couldn't sell the stuff in Europe. Well, that's a huge risk, but the other side of risk, of course, was the opportunity. And so those companies that were able to comply with the regulations gained market share from those who either couldn't or wouldn't or were too slow to meet those new regulatory requirements. And a lot of companies have built an entire strategy around the development of brand new products and services that address sustainability challenges in other organizations. Some of you will be familiar with GE's Eco-Magination strategy, which is delivering several tens of millions of dollars of revenue per year now that simply did not exist 10 years ago. Energy efficient locomotives, new products and services for water infrastructure around the world. IBM's Smarter Planet initiative is very similar. Their big data analytics capability is helping some of the world's largest cities find solutions to their chronic traffic congestion and the air pollution that goes with it. And there's a little company in Denver called Alpine Waste, which is the largest independent waste or trash hauler, I should say, in Denver, that has built its entire strategy around providing innovative recycling and other kinds of services to help their customers pursue their own sustainability initiatives. So in a nutshell, and I could talk for 20 hours on all that, 20 minutes, that's the business case for sustainability. So are we there yet? Well, somebody said to me the other day, I don't actually think so. We're probably firing on about 3 out of 6 cylinders. And I said, well, which are the 3 that aren't firing properly? And I think the first one is that retail customers, all of us in the world, are we really making our buying decisions on the basis of product sustainability or the track record of the company in terms of corporate social responsibility? And there's probably 15 or 20% of the buying population that does that. The LOHAS people, lifestyles of the healthy and sustainable, the people that shop at Whole Foods and so forth. The rest of us, honestly, maybe we do, maybe we don't. But it's not there yet by any means. Patagonia and Whole Foods rely on those people. It's slowly changing. Walmart is now the largest provider of organic foods in the country. Walmart may not. Who hates Walmart? Anybody hate Walmart? Not the world's most favorite company from this standpoint, but they're now the largest supplier of organic foods in the country. Didn't sell a dime of that stuff 10 years ago. So it's changing, but slowly. How many times have you heard a financial advisor talk about a company's sustainability track record when offering a buy recommendation to a company? Anybody? Huh? Never. Oh yeah, they get it on the downside when BP blows up their oil rig or Massey Energy blows up a mine and kills 29 people in Pennsylvania. Oh yeah, share price collapses overnight, billions of dollars. Massey Energy essentially went out of business. They had to sell out the company as a result of that episode. So they don't get it on the upside. There's no credit in the share price given, as far as anybody can tell, for a company that's pursuing a great sustainability track record. You never hear the analysts talk about that when they talk about Whole Foods. They just talk about the fact that how Walmart's out-competing them on organic foods. So they're not there yet. Even that's changing. There's a little mutual fund company based out of Denver called Shelton Capital, which manages a mutual fund of companies that are specifically selected, public companies, obviously, on the basis of their contribution to a more sustainable global economy. But I think until we get to the point where the mainstream financial community is making capital allocation recommendations, at least in part, on the basis of a company's sustainability track record, we're really not firing, that cylinder's not firing. Financial community has a lot of influence in this country, for better or worse. It ain't there yet on sustainability, for sure. At the national level, the US government, far too busy with the real world of politics to worry about things that might encourage more sustainable practices in the economy. It does get better as you come down the government spectrum. State governments, many of them, are doing a much better job on sustainability and driving it, although I was stunned on the way over here in the current edition of Fortune magazine to read of an interesting rollback of a sustainability issue right here in Ohio, that I'll be glad to share with anybody after this. Stunned me what has recently happened with State Bill 310, which, as I understand it, has rolled back the renewable energy portfolio standard in Colorado. Interesting item. Just learned about it 2 days ago. So don't want to step into any controversial territory here, but couldn't resist mentioning that, having read it on the plane. Poster child, as you come down to municipalities and cities, it gets better and better, and there are poster child communities around the country. Dubuque, Iowa, Davis, California, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Fort Collins, Colorado. These are all communities that are doing what I think you guys are doing here in Akron, of knitting together coalitions of organizations, including the business community, that are driving sustainability not only in the government entities, but in the business and other organizations in the community. And that's really good to see. I think I've got to add Akron and Summit County to my list of poster children. What will help move the needle? What we're finding in the research project that I've been doing on smaller companies for the last few years or couple of years is that smaller organizations are nervous about sustainability. They don't really know where to turn to get the right kind of advice. They're nervous, they can't afford consultants. They're nervous about non-profits to be, no offense to anybody who's a non-profit here, but they feel that non-profits have access to grind, which a lot of non-profits do. So they're nervous of non-profits. What they need is support from what we're calling mainstream business support organizations. So industry and trade association, chambers of commerce, kudos to the Greater Akron Chamber for providing that kind of support, economic development agencies. Well, one of the biggest things that we're finding perplexed by is that although the big four accounting firms are all over sustainability and are building sustainability practices to advise their Fortune 500 clients, even the largest regional accounting firms are not adding sustainability to their portfolio of business advisory services. And when you think about the fact that accounting firms are often the most trusted advisors of small and mid-sized businesses, we find that to be a major lost opportunity for accounting firms. So if there's anyone out there who knows of an accounting firm that is really into this stuff as part of its general business advisory services, I'd be really interested to talk to them, because we don't see that in the smaller accounting firms. Finally, and very quickly, a story about how sustainable business saved a little Colorado coffee company. Boyer's Coffee, founded in 1969 by Bill Boyer, shuffled along as a nice little company, 35 people, for 40 years, supplying coffee to stores, organizations up and down the Front Range. 2009, Bill Boyer, getting old, gets sick, wants to retire. Family starts to squabble over the ownership of the company. Lawsuits start flying. And by the way, the price of coffee has spiked 140% in the last 12 months. Jim McManus is a successful Boulder-based manager of money for high net worth individuals, and he's managed Bill Boyer's wealth, modest wealth, for many years. Bill says he wants Jim to step in and run the company as the CEO. Jim McManus doesn't know much about coffee, and he doesn't know much about sustainability, but he steps in to run the company. What he finds, he's aware of fair trade coffee a little bit, and he also knows that a large part of Boyer's business is supplying coffee to Walmart and Sam's Club stores up and down the Front Range. And he knows a little bit about Walmart's sustainability strategy. Now again, I know that Walmart's not everybody's favorite company, but some of the stuff that they're doing in sustainability is really quite astonishing. So the first thing he looks at, knowing that Walmart might ask him what he's doing one of these days, managing through their green supply chain initiative, he looks at the big cardboard cartons that they use to take the coffee to the stores. And the practice is that they take these cartons and they unload the coffee, put it on the shelves, and then they give the cardboard box to Walmart that recycles it. Well, he realizes that this cardboard box is a one-trip thing, and so he asks the Walmart people if they will give him back the boxes. Walmart agrees. He takes the boxes back, he gets 6 trips out of them instead of 1, saves him $50,000 a year, 50% of his cardboard cost. Then he looks at the plastic film that they use to bag the coffee, and he finds that they're using 11 different types of film. He reduces that to 4, which reduces the cost of the bagging operation by 20 to 30%, because it cuts the labor cost of changing over the machines 11 times instead of 4 times, and it reduces the amount of inevitable waste each time you change over to a new film, because there's about 15 or 20 wasted bags. So that cuts his trash bill by a couple of grand a year, takes 30% of cost out of the bagging operation. By the way, it also reduces his inventory carrying cost by 200 grand. He can't raise any money because of all the lawsuits. The banks won't lend him any credit, won't extend his credit, and the price of coffee spiked 140%. So if he doesn't take cost out of the company, he's going out of business. Then he goes to the Walmart Sustainability Group in wherever it is they are, Bentonville, Arkansas, and he finds a company in Massachusetts that produces those fluted plastic boxes. And he realizes that he can get 300 trips to the stores out of these boxes. So he makes an initial investment of 50 grand in a load of these boxes, pays back in a few months. Over a 5-year period, he's going to save $450,000 to $500,000 by switching over to these boxes. By the way, switching over to these cartons from the cardboard ones over that same 5-year period, the whole manufacturing process and the delivery of these cartons to Boyers by the manufacturer in Massachusetts takes out 80% of the total energy costs, 5.8 billion BTUs, 400 tons of CO2, and the solid waste is reduced 97% or 70 tons over that 5-year period. Walmart takes him to a company called ITW Angleboard that will take what's left of his film waste for free and use it to make plastic angles for pallets. They also remove for free 6 tons of old unusable film that's cluttering up his warehouse, which he hadn't been able to dispose of because it would cost him an arm and a leg for Allied Waste to take it to the landfill. Keeping in mind the brand equity thing, he revamps the coffee shop on the site at Boyer's headquarters to bring in more people and provides a community room for local non-profits and community organizations to meet for free, supporting the community. To do this, he buys for a minimal price old gym flooring that's being torn up from a local high school, old cupboards and shelving from a Denver bank that's being completely revamped, cost him pennies on the dollar of new material. Even after the cost of the labor to refinish that stuff, it still comes out less than what it would have cost to use new materials. And he's got a beautiful new coffee store. And then turning finally to the idea that he can build customer loyalty and increase business by extending his sustainability thinking to customers, he goes out and starts persuading his customers to save the plastic from the little pillow packs that they use in their coffee machines. He picks them up with his delivery van next time and adds those to the waste, film waste that's going off to ITW Angleboard. One example of another initiative is Oppenheimer, the big financial services company, big back office in Denver. He persuades them, instead of using throwaway cups for their coffee, he persuades them to buy a Boyer's reusable coffee mug, naturally enough with the Boyer's logo across it, gives them to employees, eliminates that waste in Oppenheimer, supports Oppenheimer's sustainability initiative. So he's building brand equity with his customers through sustainability, finding new business opportunities, locking in his customers with the sustainability thinking. Last time I heard, in 2012, they were planning an LED lighting retrofit and the use of route optimization software for their little fleet of delivery trucks. Survived very nicely. Jim McManus has gone back to his high net worth individual money management company. I told that story, finally, to an organization of small businesses that shall remain nameless in Wisconsin, because I know there's a similar organization down here a couple of years ago. One company CEO there was a supplier to Walmart. He hated Walmart with a passion, which a lot of people do. And he asked me after I got done with that story, he said, well, so what? That all sounds like just good business to me. What the hell's the big deal? And I thought for a moment and I said, well, yeah. Is that right? Then why doesn't every small business leader think this way and do this kind of stuff? And he did shut up after that. And so, of course, sustainable business is good business. Why wouldn't you do it? Thank you.
I interviewed Graham yesterday when I picked him up from the airport, and one of the questions I asked him was how, if just like he talked about, if there's people within an organization who are looking for some sort of sustainable practice within the organization, what can they do to reach that upper level management that may not be aware of what's going on or may not be on board with that yet?
Well, it seems to me that the way most business people learn, I think, is they learn best from other business people rather than from consultants or anybody else. And so I think getting out there these stories, like you're doing with this awards session, in front of other business people, is the way for somebody inside an organization to go if their leaders are not on board. They say, but look what these guys are doing over here, and they're stealing our business. That's a pretty good motivator for most business people. And so, but I think, cajoling, just making the business case and pointing to somebody else who's actually doing it, and the metrics there that are compelling, cost savings or new market opportunities or whatever it may be. I think that's the best way for people to set about it. And then we got one more question here.
And we've got two more.
Oh, wait, we do. Okay.
I've got one here too.
This one is, who's to say sustainability equals employee retention in regards to sustainable practices? There are studies out there. I'm not sure that I can quote. Whoever asked that question, I'd be happy to email you the information. But there are studies out there. There's a bank I'm aware of somewhere in Nebraska who has tracked its employee retention rate and how it has changed and why it has changed over a period of 5 or 6 years since they've had a sustainability program. So it's tough to measure, obviously, because there are multiple reasons why people stay with companies or leave. But there are studies out there, and I can find them, and if you'd like to give me your email address, I'll point you to them when I get back home. Okay.
All right. And should there be a chief sustainability officer / position in most or all firms?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I think if you're a small to mid-sized firm, it's quite difficult to begin with to appoint somebody on a full-time basis to do it. And in larger companies, there are chief sustainability officers, and some of them are very successful. AT&T has had a revolutionary experience with its sustainability initiatives over the last 3 or 4 years by appointing a very high-level lady whose name I can't remember to be their chief sustainability officer. But what I've seen also in quite large companies is that they will appoint a director-level sustainability person, and that tends to demonstrate that the leadership is not totally behind it because they're not a member of the senior management team, and he or she reports up through the government relations department or the marketing department or the human resources department or goodness only knows what. It doesn't work very well. So again, I come back to the idea that you're going to have that top leadership commitment, I think, to make sense out of appointing a chief sustainability officer and really involve them in the strategic decision making of the company, so that these corporate social responsibility and sustainability initiatives are always included in those major strategic discussions. So it's a wonderful thing if the leadership's really committed.
Right. And one final question here regarding the carbon trade tax, how this could help not only environment but also business.
Are we talking about cap and trade, or are we talking about a carbon tax?
It says carbon trade tax.
Well, I mean, there's two ways to go with carbon. You can either have a market-based cap and trade system, such as they've got rolling in California now, which is actually proving to be quite successful. If any of you are interested in looking at an example of a cap and trade system, which is market-based, I mean, it's obviously driven within a regulatory infrastructure, but it's working quite well. Or you can simply stick a tax on carbon, which they tried in Australia, and Julia, whatever her name was, the Prime Minister, is now no longer the Prime Minister. Current government has repealed the carbon tax, and they're back where they were 5 years ago. So some people think carbon tax is simpler, but it's politically extremely difficult to make stick. Particularly in the US, I think there's a bias towards a market-based mechanism like a cap and trade system. But I think we're a couple of weeks away from getting that in the US on a national level, at least a couple of weeks away.
Well, thank you very much, Greg.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I just want to say that one of the questions that Andrew asked me yesterday is, what's your favourite song from the 60s and 70s, which took me about 10 minutes to figure out. So I'm glad he didn't bring that one up this morning. Thanks, Andrew.
All right, at this time we want to start into our awards, and I'd like to bring up Doug Piakosh. He's the sustainability guru with the Akron Zoo and a driving force behind our Summit of Sustainability Committee. So Doug, please come forward.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're really enjoying the program this morning. And I have served this year as the judging coordinator for Summit of Sustainability Awards. And we've initiated a brand new award, basically the Sustainability Medal. The Sustainability Medal's purpose is to allow our judging committee the ability to honor outstanding particular elements of an application. And I would like to take just a second and ask the judges who are present to stand as I read their names. Our judging committee consisted of Dr. Nicholas Zingali from Cleveland State University, Sam Rubens, Akron Regional Air Quality Management District, Dr. Stacy Willett, University of Akron, Robert Marshall, Cedarwood Architects, and Mike Long, Ohio Byproduct Synergy Network. These individuals put in a lot of time earlier this summer in the evaluation of all of these applications, so thank you very much for your hard work on behalf of the Summit of Sustainability Awards Committee. These two medals were basically at the sole discretion of the judges that you've all just honored. They do represent outstanding elements of the applications. And for our first 2014 Sustainability Medal is awarded to the Habitat for Humanity of Summit County for their construction of 95 homes since 2001, built to Energy Star standards in Summit County. Building to Energy Star standards, especially on a residential level, is an incredibly important statement to all people who live in Summit County. And I'd therefore like to invite Rochelle Fisher, President and CEO, to come up and join us and receive her award on behalf of the Summit of Sustainability Awards Committee. Thank you very much for the hard work that your company has done.
Thank you so much.
One more.
Now for our second 2014 Sustainability Medal, it is awarded to Omnova Solutions for their water conservation program, which has reduced, amazingly, their water consumption by 79%. Considering many of us know that we currently face water issues here within the greater Akron area, the judges wanted to hold this up as a benchmarkable business opportunity for others to emulate. And I would therefore like to invite Dave Effler, Facilities Manager, Harry Hunter, Maintenance Engineer, and Bob Christman, Shipping, Receiving, and Special Projects Manager from Omnova Solutions, to come up and receive your Sustainability Medal. Thank you very much for your hard work.
And at this time, I would like to introduce Mayor of the City of Akron, Don Plasquelik, and the Summit County Executive, Russ Pry, who are coming up to help with the awards presentation. Now, we've got many different categories that we judge on with the Summit of Sustainability. We've got small company category, which is 25 employees or less. The large business category, which is 250 employees or more. We've also got the nonprofit/community category, and our public sector, which deals with municipalities such as the City of Akron or the County of Summit or schools. So our first winner in the small business category this year, Salisbury Schweier Incorporated, Sustainable Landscape Designers. And accepting for Salisbury Schweier, President Samuel L. Salisbury and Sabrina Schweier, Vice President. And the awards themselves are made of recycled materials. The emblem of the County of Summit is actually made from recycled computer parts, the plastic within that. So that was something that we felt was very important, being a sustainable awards, that we be smart about what we're doing. So everything, as I said earlier, this is a zero waste event. Nothing from this event is going into the landfill, and the awards themselves are actually made from recycled materials. And our next award is in the large business category, and that goes to Summa Health System. And accepting for Summa Health System, John Swanzinger and Mark Barrett. This year was a bit of a tough year for our judges. In the nonprofit community category, we had a tie. So instead of flipping a coin and picking one over the other, we had two winners this year. Our first winner is Goodwill Industries of Akron. And accepting for Goodwill Industries of Akron, Nan McClanagan, President and CEO. Our second winner in the nonprofit community category is St. Hilary School and Parish. And accepting for St. Hilary Parish and School, Katie McCarthy, Stewardship Minister at St. Hilary Parish. And I got to see a little bit firsthand on what St. Hilary does with recycling. My daughter was part of Camp Invention this summer and absolutely loved it. I was amazed at all the materials that were brought in. Parents were asked to send in any sort of recyclable material that the kids could use to invent whatever, and they had projects. She came home with a little solar-powered car. We sent in computers and radios and just all sorts of items. So a really, really cool program. If you are looking for something for your kids to do in the summertime, check out Camp Invention. So our final category is the public sector, which is the government school category. I know St. Hilary School was in on that, but the parish as a whole fit into the community aspect. Our winner in the public sector is actually Old Trail School. And accepting on behalf of Old Trail School, John Farber, who's the head of the school. And thanks again to Mayor Plisquelic and Russ Pry, County of Summit Executive. And once again, I would like to thank our judges who are here, Dr. Nicholas Ngali, Dr. Stacy Willett, Sam Rubens, Robert Marshall, and Michael D. Long. Also, keeping with the school theme, we have students here from Stark State College. Would you please stand up and be recognized? We have students from the University of Akron. And thanks to the Dominion Foundation and First Energy Foundation, we have students from Firestone High School within the Akron Public Schools. And on cue, our photographer, Bruce Ford. I'd also like to thank the University of Akron for hosting us again this year at Quaker Station and for the wonderful food they prepared. Again, this is a zero waste event. None of the food that was left over is going to waste. It's going to be composted. Reworks has got their zero waste program, the Be the One program. They're handling all that. They're working with the staff here at the University of Akron. Also, the mums on the tables, those are yours to take, so please take those home. The pens provided by Metro, those are made out of recycled materials. Those go with you as well. The little business cards in front of you with the Summit of Sustainability logo, those are actually implanted with flower seeds. And it's got instructions on the back how you can take those home and you can plant those. So those are reusable as well. And of course, you'll notice no plastic, no styrofoam. It's all plates and silverware and glasses. That stuff can be rewashed and reused. Kind of in closing, Graham touched on it, Dan touched on it a little bit. Kind of the 3 Ps that we talk about within the Summit of Sustainability: people, planet, and profit. And being a business community, if we take care of the people and take care of the planet, we will definitely profit from that. But I think there's another P that should be added to that, and that's planning. Sustainability planning. You don't go into a business blindly. You have a plan of how you want to succeed in business, whatever that is. If you're building a house, you've got blueprints, you have a plan. You have an idea of where you want to go. So we've got folks on the Summit of Sustainability Committee who are willing to help you if you're not sure which direction you need to go, or maybe you need help starting or moving your plan to the next step. Please contact us. We can get you in touch with those folks. And real quick, I would like to have the members of the Summit Sustainability Committee stand, please, and be recognized. So your plan for 2015 starts today because we're already planning for next year. So please take a look at where you were, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there. Come up with that sustainability plan, implement that plan, and start working on your 2015 application. Thank you.